Jimin attracts people everywhere he goes. Women and men alike are drawn to something they can't quite explain. But who is he actually attracted to? And what kind of person could truly hold his attention and his heart? Jimin's horoscope reveals not just his type, but also clues about his future spouse and when that story might begin. Hello stars, welcome back to my channel where I analyze the birth chart of your favorite celebrities. If you're new here, my name is Beatrice, I'm a professional astrologer, and in this video I'm taking a closer look at the relationship horoscope of BTS member Park Jimin. I already made a video about him in general, about his personality and career. If you want to watch that video too, you'll find the link in the description. In today's video, we focus on his relationships. We'll take a look at how he connects with people, what he needs in love, who his ideal partner is, and what his chart reveals about his future spouse and the timing of his marriage. Talking about relationships, there are two that fans are very curious about: Jimin's relationship to Jungkook and to Suga. I will make separate videos about Jikook and Min, so stick around if you don't want to miss them. Before we dive into Jimin's horoscope, there is one thing that I want to mention because I can already see comments about his sexuality coming. So let me tell you that this is a topic that I won't talk about. It's not my role and I also don't want to out anyone. That's why in all my relationship-related videos in the original English language, I use gender-neutral nouns like partner, person, or spouse. If you watch the videos with subtitles, the translation in other languages might be girlfriend or wife, but please keep in mind that I'm not using these nouns. I'm neither confirming that he is straight nor saying that he is gay. What I am saying is that it is none of our business what Jimin or other celebrities do in their bedroom. Jimin in relationships. Let's start by understanding how Jimin connects with people in general, not just in love, but in everyday life, friendships, and the way he naturally relates to others. Right away, one thing stands out. His chart is strongly dominated by water signs. Water energy is emotional, intuitive, and deeply sensitive. This means Jimin doesn't experience people on a surface level. He feels them. He picks up on moods, unspoken words, and emotional undercurrents very easily. This is the kind of energy that makes someone naturally empathetic but also easily affected by others. And there's something else very interesting in his chart, a pattern called bucket. Almost all his planets are grouped in one half, while his moon, representing emotions and inner needs, sits alone on the opposite side, like the handle of the bucket. This tells us that his emotional world plays a very special role. It's almost like his feelings are the key that helps him balance everything else in his life. But it can also feel a bit isolating at times, like he processes emotions in a way that others don't always fully understand. His sun, which represents his core identity, is in Libra, the sign of relationships, harmony, and connection. Jimin is someone who naturally defines himself through his interactions with others. He wants peace, balance, and mutual understanding. He's not someone who enjoys conflict. He would rather create a beautiful, harmonious atmosphere around him. What makes this even stronger is that his sun is connected to the asteroid Ceres, which represents care and nurturing, and Hera, which is linked to commitment and meaningful bonds. So when Jimin shows up in people's life, he doesn't do it halfway. There is warmth, loyalty, and a genuine desire to take care of others. But at the same time, his sun is in tension with Neptune, the planet of dreams, illusion, and sensitivity, placed in his first astrological house, the area of identity and how others see him. This can make his presence feel almost otherworldly. People may project their fantasies onto him or see him as something idealized. And for Jimin, this can sometimes create confusion. Where does he end and where do other people's expectations begin? Communication is another key theme in his chart. He has a very strong cluster of planets and asteroids in Libra in the ninth house, the house of meaning, beliefs, and bigger view of life. His Mercury, the planet of communication, is retrograde here, which means he thinks deeply and reflects a lot before expressing himself. He may not always say things immediately, but when he does, there's depth behind his words. This cluster also includes Chiron, linked to emotional wounds and healing, Sappho, connected to artistic expression and deep appreciation, Fortuna, which brings luck, a sense of flow and destiny, Cupido, attraction and charm, and Nike, the asteroid symbolizing victory and the drive to succeed. Together this shows someone whose voice carries emotion, beauty and meaning, but also vulnerability. His words can heal, inspire and connect people because they come from a very personal place. His ascendant, the energy people first feel from him, is in Sagittarius, a sign that brings openness, warmth, and a kind of natural brightness. Right next to it is Juno, an asteroid linked to commitment and partnership. This is very important. Even in general interactions, people may feel that Jimin is someone who takes connections seriously. He doesn't come across as superficial. There's a sense of sincerity and depth even at first glance. Juno at the ascendant also shows that Jimin needs a partner to feel truly complete. Think of him as a beautiful flower. The other person would be like the sun. As soon as Jimin feels their love and warmth, he grows and reveals his full beauty. At the same time, there is inner tension. His moon in Gemini is in the sixth house, which connects to daily life and routines. This gives him a curious, active mind, always processing, always thinking. But this moon is in opposition to Jupiter, the planet of expansion, in the 12th house, the area of the subconscious. This can create emotional ups and downs, moments of mental overload, followed by a need to withdraw and recharge. It's like his mind and his inner world are constantly pulling in different directions. The way he communicates also reflects this sensitivity. His third house, which shows communication style, is in Pisces, a very intuitive, emotional sign. And with Saturn there, the planet of responsibility and restraint, he may sometimes hold back, choosing his words carefully or feeling the weight of what he says. This is not someone who speaks lightly, even if it seems effortless on the outside. All of this connects strongly to his life path. His midheaven, showing his public role, is in Libra, together with his Sun and Ceres and his North Node, which represents his direction in life. Jimin is meant to connect, to bring people together, to create harmony on a larger scale. But with Neptune and Uranus creating tension to this path, it's not always straightforward. There can be confusion, sudden changes, or moments where he has to redefine who he is in the eyes of others. So overall, when it comes to relationships in general, Jimin is someone who connects deeply, feels intensely, and carries both warmth and complexity. He brings beauty and emotional depth into people's lives, but at the same time, he is still learning how to protect his own inner world while staying open to others. Family. When we look at Jimin's family life, we start to see where this deep sensitivity we talked about earlier is coming from, and how early relationships shape the way he connects with others today. His third house, which represents siblings and close environment, is in Pisces. Pisces is a very emotional, intuitive sign. This suggests that the connection with his younger brother is not just practical or surface level. There is a quiet emotional bond there. Even if they don't always express everything in words, there is a sense of understanding that goes beyond that. But at the same time, Saturn, the planet of responsibility, structure, and sometimes emotional distance, is also in this area, and it's retrograde, meaning its energy is more internal. This can show that growing up, communication in the family may not have always been easy or open. Jimin may have learned early on to hold things in, to think carefully before speaking, or even to take on a more serious or responsible role than expected. He likely took his role as the older brother very seriously, feeling responsible not just for himself, but for others too. Then we move to his fourth house, which represents home, family roots, and emotional foundation. This is in Aries, a very different kind of energy. Aries is active, strong, and independent. This suggests that his home environment may have encouraged strength, action, or even a certain level of independence from a young age. It can also show that Jimin learned to stand on his own feet early, even if emotionally he is someone very sensitive inside. So in his family story, we see this mix. On one side, deep emotional bonds that are not always spoken out loud. And on the other, an environment that pushes towards strength, independence, and growing up a little faster. This combination of sensitivity inside and strength outside becomes a pattern that continues in his friendships and the people he chooses to surround himself with. Friendships and business partnerships. As we move from family into friendships and business partnerships, something becomes very clear. Jimin is not someone who connects randomly with people. His connections have meaning, intensity, and often a sense of destiny. One of the strongest patterns in his chart shows a natural flow between his drive, his emotions, and the people around him. This creates what we could call a working harmony. When he connects with the right people, things don't just feel good, they work. There is progress, creativity, and shared success. This is especially visible in his 11th house, the area of friendships, teams, group dynamics, and also related to his fans. Here we find Mars and Pluto, two very powerful planets. Mars is action and energy, Pluto is transformation and deep intensity. So in group settings, Jimin is not passive. Even if sometimes he seems soft on the outside, he brings strength, focus, and emotional depth into his friendships and team environments. These are not light connections. They can be intense, loyal, and long-lasting. And this connects directly to his 7th house, which represents partnerships, both personal and professional. This is also the area we can associate with him being part of a group like BTS. His 7th house starts in Gemini, a sign of communication, exchange, and connection. This suggests that his partnerships are built on interaction, talking, sharing ideas, growing together. But there's more depth here. Lilith, which represents raw, unfiltered emotions and the part of us that refuses to be controlled, is placed right in this area. This means that in close partnerships, Jimin doesn't just play a role or follow expectations. There is a strong need to stay true to himself, even if that creates tension at times. He may attract intense or emotionally complex dynamics where boundaries and authenticity become very important. At the same time, there is also karma in this house, an asteroid connected to destiny and meaningful encounters. This reinforces the idea that the people he partners with are not random. They come into his life for a reason, to shape his path, and he does the same for them. Now, if we look at his public life, everything aligns beautifully. His midheaven, the point that represents career and public image, is in Libra, the sign of relationships and harmony. His sun, his core identity, and Ceres, the energy of care and support, are also both there. This tells us that Jimin is meant to be seen with others, not alone. His success grows through connection, through collaboration, through shared presence. He shines when he is part of something and when he can bring warmth and balance into a group. His Venus, the planet of love, charm, and attraction, is also placed high in his chart in the 10th house of career, public image, and social status. This gives him a natural likability in public. People are drawn to him. He creates positive relationships, not just privately, but also in his career. Jimin is someone who can build strong supportive connections that also benefit his professional life. And with his North Node representing his life direction or destiny, also in Libra in the 10th house, this becomes even more important. Jimin is learning in this lifetime how to build meaningful partnerships in the public eye, how to trust others, work with others, and grow through those connections. So when we look at his friendships and business relationships, we see a clear pattern. They are intense, meaningful, and often fated. They challenge him to stay true to himself, and at the same time, they are one of the biggest reasons for his success. Romantic relationships and intimate life. Now we move into Jimin's romantic world, and here everything we've seen before becomes more intense, more emotional, and much more magnetic. Jimin's sun, his core self, is in Libra, the sign of relationships. This already tells us that love is not just something extra in his life. It's central to who he is. He feels most like himself when he is connected to someone, when there is harmony, closeness, and mutual understanding. And this energy is deepened by the asteroid Ceres, which represents care and nurturing, and Hera, which is linked to commitment and long-term bonds, both connected to his sun. So Jimmy doesn't approach love casually. Even if things may start lightly, underneath there is always a desire for something meaningful, something real. But here comes a twist. His sun is in a tense aspect with Neptune, the planet of dreams, fantasy, and illusion. This can make love feel magical, but also confusing. Jimin may idealize his partner, see the best in them, sometimes even more than what is actually there. Relationships can start with a dreamlike feeling, like something out of a movie, but over time Jimin must learn to see clearly, not just emotionally. And then there is something very powerful. Juno, the asteroid of commitment and marriage, is right on his ascendant. This means that even from the outside, Jimin gives off the energy of someone who is made for partnership. People may see him and immediately feel this is someone who could be a partner, someone who takes relationships seriously. As I mentioned earlier, Juno at the ascendant also means that Jimin needs a partner to feel truly complete. One very strong element that influences his romantic and intimate life is the strong Scorpio energy. His Venus, the planet of love and attraction, Mars, passion and desire, Pluto, intensity and transformation, and Valentine, an asteroid linked to romantic expression, are all in Scorpio. Scorpio is not light, easy love. It is deep, intense, all or nothing energy. This gives Jimin a very strong magnetism. He is the definition of sex appeal. It's the kind of energy that draws people in without trying. It can attract both women and men because it's not about surface, it's about emotional and physical depth. In relationships, it means he loves deeply, passionately, and completely. But it also means there can be jealousy, emotional extremes, or a fear of losing control. For him, intimacy is not just physical, it's emotional merging, it's spiritual and transformative. Jimin is especially drawn to people who carry intensity in their presence, often something visible in the eyes, the gaze, the way they look at him. A deep magnetic eye contact can be incredibly powerful for him. He is attracted to partners who feel mysterious, sensual, and who are aware of their own attractiveness. People who are not shy about physical love, who can even talk or joke about it naturally. There has to be confidence, a quiet power, and the ability to match Jimin's energy. He needs someone who can keep up with him not just emotionally, but also in terms of passion and intensity. Someone who meets him fully without holding back. His Venus in the 10th house connects love with his public life. This can mean that his relationships are visible, talked about, or somehow connected to his career. Love is not fully private for him. It becomes part of his story in the public eye. When we look at how he experiences romance, his 5th house, the area of dating and falling in love, is in Taurus. This zodiac sign is slow, sensual, and grounded. So even though Jimin's emotion can be intense, he actually needs stability in love. He enjoys physical closeness, comfort, loyalty, someone he can truly relax with. But then when we move deeper into intimacy, his 8th house, the area of emotional and physical bonding, is in fiery Leo. Here love becomes expressive, passionate, even dramatic. He wants to feel special, chosen, and deeply desired. The asteroid Amor, which represents pure love, is also in this area. This shows that at his core, Jimin wants a love that is not just intense, but also warm, generous, and heartfelt. A love that makes him feel alive. But Amor is in tension with his Venus in Scorpio, so there is a push and pull between wanting deep, consuming passion and wanting open, joyful love. This can create inner conflict in relationships, moments where he is not sure whether to protect himself emotionally or to fully open his heart. At the same time, his part of fortune, a point of luck, happiness, and flow, is also in this deep, intimate area. This tells us something very important. Even though love can be intense and complicated for him, it is also one of his greatest sources of joy and fulfillment. So overall, Jimin is someone who loves deeply, attracts strongly, and experiences relationships in a way that can be both magical and overwhelming. Spouse and marriage. When we ask what kind of marriage or long-term love relationship Jimin is moving toward, we need to look at his 7th house, the area that represents partnerships and one's spouse. His 7th house begins in Gemini, the sign ruling over communication, curiosity, and mental connection. This tells us that for Jimin, a relationship cannot survive without strong communication. His future spouse is likely someone he can talk to easily, someone witty, curious, and mentally engaging. There needs to be movement in the relationship, conversations, shared ideas, learning together. Gemini also often points to someone younger than him or at least very young at heart. This is someone playful, lively, and mentally quick, someone who keeps things fresh and doesn't let the relationship become heavy or stuck. If there is something that Jimin hates in relationships, it's boredom and monotony. One other thing that Gemini might hint to is that Jimin will potentially marry two or more times, or he will have a very important marriage-like relationship before later deciding to get married to someone else. And then Jimin has Black Moon Lilith in this area. Lilith represents raw emotion, independence, and the part of us that refuses to be controlled or put into a box. With Lilith in his seventh house in Cancer, a deeply emotional sign, relationships can feel intense, sometimes even challenging. His spouse may be someone who is emotionally strong, maybe a bit mysterious, but also independent and not afraid to express their needs. This is not a quiet or passive partner. This is someone with depth, with feelings, with a strong inner world. At times this can create tension. There can be moments where emotions run high, where both sides need space, or where boundaries need to be clearly defined. But this is also what makes the connection real. Jimmy is not meant for a superficial partnership. He is meant for something that pushes him to grow emotionally. Lilith in the seventh house can also indicate something else, that his partner and or his marriage will be unusual, defying society's standards. It might even touch on topics that are taboo. In any case, his romantic relationships and especially his marriage won't be like traditional ones. And then we also see asteroid Karma in his seventh house in Leo. Karma represents destiny, connections that feel meant to happen. In Leo, this adds warmth, passion, and a sense of significance. His love relationships are not something small or random. They feel important, even fated. His spouse may be someone who stands out, someone confident, expressive, maybe even admired by others. And when they come together, it can feel like a connection that was always meant to be. So when we put all of this together, Jimin's marriage is built on three key energies: mental connection, emotional intensity, and a sense of destiny. It's a relationship where communication is essential, where emotions are deep and sometimes challenging, but where both partners feel that this connection has a purpose. And after everything we've seen so far, one thing becomes clear. Jimin is not meant for an ordinary love story, and neither is the person he will marry. Ideal partner and name of the spouse. So after everything we've seen, the depth, the emotional intensity, the need for real connection, the question becomes, who is the person who can truly meet Jimin on all these levels? His ideal partner is someone who can connect with his mind first. There has to be conversation, curiosity, a natural flow of words. He is drawn to someone who is expressive, a little playful, someone who can make him laugh and keep things light when needed. Silence or emotional distance will slowly disconnect him. He needs interaction, movement, mental spark. But that's only one side of the story. Underneath, Jimmy needs someone who can handle deep emotional intensity. He doesn't love halfway. When he connects, he goes all in, emotionally, mentally, and physically. So his partner needs to be strong enough to hold that depth. Someone loyal, passionate, and not afraid of closeness. Someone who doesn't run when things get intense, but stays and goes even deeper with him. This creates a very specific mix. Someone who might seem light and playful on the outside, but is deep, intense, and emotionally strong on the inside. At the same time, Jimmy needs freedom within the relationship. He's drawn to someone open-minded, someone who has their own path, their own identity. This is not about control or dependency. It's about two people choosing each other while still growing individually. Because of his sensitive nature, communication has to feel safe and intuitive. He needs someone who understands what he feels even when he doesn't say everything directly. Someone gentle, empathetic, emotionally aware. The kind of person who listens not just to words, but to what's behind them. There's also another layer to what he needs in a partner. For Jimin, physical attraction and intimacy are very important. not in a superficial way, but in a deep, almost consuming way. There has to be real chemistry, something you can feel, not just see. He is drawn to people who have a certain magnetism, who are mysterious, intense, a little hard to read. The kind of person who keeps him curious. He needs someone who can keep up with him on every level, emotionally, mentally, and physically. Someone who isn't overwhelmed by closeness, but who can match his energy and go just as deep. For him, intimacy is about connection, trust, and intensity all at once. It's not just affection, it's something that pulls him in completely. According to his birth chart, a person that would fit him very well would be someone with a strong Leo energy. This would mean someone who is a Leo, has a Leo ascendant, or has several planets in Leo. Now, when it comes to the name of the future spouse, astrology doesn't work in a literal way. It doesn't give exact names, but it gives us some hints related to the name's meaning. First of all, the name of Jimin's future spouse is likely traditional and classic, not modern or that was trendy just for a while. It would be a name connected in meaning to one or more of the following three topics. The first one revolves around purity, simplicity, modesty. The second one around intelligence, knowledge, wisdom. And the third one around kindness, devotion, care, service, and healing. When will Jimin get married? After all this information, we've now come to the part where we talk about the big question. When will Jimin get married? The overall energy in his chart suggests that marriage is more likely to happen later in life, whatever late means for everyone, also depending on the cultural context. In any case, Jimmy needs time to grow, to understand himself, and to go through deep emotional experiences before settling down. There is also something else. If the birth time that I'm using is correct, there is a chance that he might get engaged, but wedding gets delayed or even doesn't happen as planned. This doesn't mean Jimin won't get married. It just shows that timing in his love life may not always be straightforward. If you remember, I said earlier that Jimin's horoscope shows an important marriage-like relationship before he later gets married to someone else. Well, these puzzle pieces would fit. He might plan to marry someone and even gets engaged, but if the wedding doesn't happen as planned, he will marry someone else later on. Now let's take a look at the most supportive periods. A very important window opened at the end of May 2025 and lasts until mid-July 2026. This is a strong time to meet someone significant, start a relationship, deepen an existing connection, or in some cases even get engaged or married. It's a period where opportunities in love increase a lot. Then a few years later, we see another key phase, between November 2028 and November 2029. This period carries a strong energy for commitment, engagement, or marriage. This is all I can tell you about Jimin's relationships and potential partner. And now I'm curious to know what you think. What kind of partner do you see next to him? Do you maybe already have a certain person in mind? If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And don't miss my next video. We're going to talk about Suga and why certain things people say about him are actually not true at all. Until next time, shine bright like the stars.